Everyone, we got 7 p.m., so we'll go ahead and get this meeting started, as we always do, by standing for our prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance. God our Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all the people who live in our city. Give all the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can with your help and guidance. We pray this in your name. Amen. Call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. It is December 2nd. This is our first regular scheduled meeting for the month of December. 2 more for this year. Mr. Hedger, when you're ready, please call the roll.
Miss Orb.
Here.
Miss Gaston.
Here.
Miss Chichester.
Here.
Miss Alexander. Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Davis. Miss Underwood.
Here.
I did hear from both Ms. Alexander and Mr. Davis that they would not be present this evening.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I move that we excuse Ms. Alexander and Mr. Davis from this evening's meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson.
I second that.
Motion by Ms. Underwood. Second by Mr. Wilson. To excuse Ms. Alexander and Mr. Davis from tonight's meeting. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Miss Orb.
Yes.
Miss Gaston.
Yes.
Miss Chichester.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Miss Underwood.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. All right. We have tonight's agenda, but before we go to that, we did get some legislation this afternoon. Resolution, what number would this be, Mr. Hedger? 18?
Resolution 18.
All right, it's a resolution authorizing the city to execute a contract for reconstruction of Oak Knoll, Corcoran, and Baywood. My understanding is that we need to pass this by 12/31, and I did ask why, and I did not get an answer why it was due on 12/31.
Mr. President, my apologies. It is because the funding that's involved with it needs to be passed so that we can also pass the legislation to regroup the funds. It's 100% upfront, but we're going to have reimbursements of those funds.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, so it's not on the agenda for tonight. It has not been through a committee, but if council wishes, we can add it to tonight's agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I move that we add resolution number 18-24 to this evening's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson.
I second that.
Motion by Ms. Underwood, second by Mr. Wilson, to add resolution 18-2024 to our agenda. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Orb.
taking into consideration that, and I know we haven't talked about it in detail yet, but in the cleanup ordinance, the street levy is already needing an increase of $50,000. If this is coming out of the street levy in 2024, I fear there is another large adjustment that would need to go in that appropriation. Not to mention, I doubt that whoever's reimbursing us would reimburse us before the end of the year. So I suspect we need to talk about this a little bit further in a committee meeting. So I'm not necessarily opposed to putting it on the agenda, but I would like it to also go into a committee if at all possible.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I do recall getting a timeline for all of these street projects. I don't recall whether we discussed that timeline, but I do remember getting a timeline for all of these projects, and this would kind of be in sync with that timeline. I do remember specifically Oak Knoll and Baywood being around this time. So I am happy to take this into my committee, and I'm just asking that we just add it to the agenda so we can get a first reading. That's all. I'm not asking for us to suspend the readings or anything. You know, I will dig out that timeline and certainly provide my colleagues with more information with regard to that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dukestein.
so we were able to verify with Ms. Anderson before this council meeting that it will be coming out of the 2025 budget. I would welcome the idea of it going into a committee to have discussion, but we definitely need to have it approved on December the 16th. And it is for the 3 streets. It's the repavement of those 3 streets. We will pay for it 100% and then be reimbursed 100% if we follow the timeline.
Okay, so before I call the vote, yes, I would like for it to be on your next agenda for public safety.
Absolutely.
Ms. Underwood, just to confirm all of that. All right, any other discussion? All right, motion on the floor to add Resolution 18-2024 to the agenda. The motion was by Ms. Underwood, second by Mr. Wilson. Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Ms. Zorn,
Yes.
Ms. Gaston,
Yes.
Ms. Chichester,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you.
President,
Ms. Zorb?
I'd like to make a motion, we accept the agenda as amended.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I'll second that.
Motion to accept tonight's agenda as amended by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. Underwood. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Ms. Zorn,
Yes.
Ms. Gaston,
Yes.
Ms. Chichester,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. We have meeting minutes from the 11/18/2024 meeting. I was hoping to have minutes from the special meeting last week, but they are not ready yet, so I'll have them by our next meeting.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester?
make a motion to accept the agenda.
The minutes.
Yes, the minutes, sorry.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gaston?
I second.
Motion to accept the minutes from the 11/18 meeting by Ms. Chichester with a second by Ms. Gaston. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll. Oh, hold on, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah. You said this is for the 11/18?
Correct.
Can I ask you a question? Am I looking at this correctly? Or am I just tripping?
What's your question, sir?
I say minutes, council meetings, 11/4/24,
Where are you seeing that at?
right here.
I think he's talking about right here, Mr. Graves. That he's talking-
Right, because this is the minutes from the 11/18 meeting where we accepted the 11/4 minutes.
That's what I need to know. All
Okay,
right,
sorry,
thank you,
I just didn't see where you were talking about.
Yes, sir. All right.
All right, please call the roll.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Gaston,
Yes.
Ms. Chichester,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Hedger, do we have any communication this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to ask council if they have an update on the scanning project. I know it was assigned to rules and rules and public policy. So see if it's been on the agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I do not. I guess I was waiting for a recommendation from you.
I did provide the 3 quotes. At council, I'd say I didn't have a recommendation either. All of them were around the same price and offered the same services.
So which
So-
one do you recommend?
The lowest price.
It's not always the best.
Fair enough. I will take that up in my committee.
Is that all, Mr. Hedger?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is council committees, starting with City Community Development and Recreation.
Give me a second here, Mr. I know we did meet. Hold on. I'm trying to find my minutes. She sent them to me. So much. I gotta figure out how to organize this thing. There we go. Here. Minutes. Hey, Mr. President, I apologize, but I'm having technical difficulty pulling up the minutes for my meeting. But I know we did discuss the Food Truck Friday, the fireworks, and it was, so I apologize. So we met Tuesday, November the 12th at 7 p.m. Recreation. I don't believe we got that report. Miss Clara was not there. We discussed the trash cans. Mr. Hoffman was not there also. Food Truck Friday, of course, every first and third Friday of each month. The next one is December the 6th, this coming Friday, from 4 to 9. It will be at the same location, 1500 Galbraith, West Galbraith. The fireworks, we're still working on that project for us moving forward with the 2025 fireworks show. We did discuss the sports league. No old business, no
I'm sorry,
new business.
Mr. President. I'm
Underwood?
experiencing deja vu, Mr. Wilson. I feel like you gave this same report on November 18th.
Oh, did I? I don't have my paperwork here, but
You
that's the
discussed
report
Food Truck Friday, the fireworks show, the sports league, and the best yard contest. A special meeting was set on November 19th, and your next meeting is December 9th.
Appreciate it. I can't
For the
find this
minutes?
in here. I'm having technical difficulties.
Right, directly from the minutes.
Well, I wasn't looking at them minutes. Apologize. Well, I had minutes here and I'm having technical difficulties finding them. So, thank you. Appreciate it. There go my report.
All right, next is budget and finance.
Budget and Finance meeting was rescheduled to a meeting of the whole the last time on the 25th. And our next official Budget and Finance meeting will be on Monday, December the 9th. And that's it for Budget and Finance till we meet again.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gaston?
Madam Chair, do you think it would be possible for us to have a copy of the completed 2025 proposed budget by Wednesday so that we can review it before next meeting?
I sent emails out saying that exact same thing, that everybody will have all the meeting agenda and supporting documents on Wednesday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is rules and public policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next meeting is December 9th. We last met on November the 12th, and we gave the report on that on November 18th.
Thank you. And public safety.
Same thing. Our next meeting is December 9th. We last met on November the 12th, and we gave a report about that on November 18th.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Next on the agenda is ad hoc reports. Does anyone have an ad hoc report to give to this evening? Hearing none, we'll move to the administrative reports. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone had a fantastic time with their families and a restful week last week celebrating Thanksgiving. I most certainly did. I would like to thank everyone who came out to the Christmas tree lighting on Saturday. I want to give a special thank you to the NCH Trojan Pride Band. Those young people come out. They've come out every year, and they do a phenomenal job. And I think it is just amazing, the talent that they have. I would also like to thank St. Margaret Mary's Choir. Typically there's 4, but this year was 2, and they did a phenomenal job as well. There are so many others to thank. Ms. Clear for her work, Public Works for doing a phenomenal job on the tree, getting the lights up, and throughout the city. I know they put it in different places as well to try to make sure that our city is lit up. I'm not sure. I do know, I did ask Mrs. Orb if you guys, as the tree commission, was going to decorate that tree, and then Ms. Bruner reached out. I have not driven that way, so I'm not sure if it's not done yet. Well, I know that'll be lit up as well. The skating rink for our December festivities will take place December 20th, 21st, and 22nd from 4 to 8. You can purchase prepaid tickets online, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And finally, I would like to welcome and introduce our new city administrator, Ms. Arias Dukes-Dean. We've had some time. We've had an interim. We had some time without one, and we had a team that worked together in order to fill the position. And so the time has come, and Ms. Dukes-Dean has graciously agreed to be our city administrator, and she did begin today. I will let her say anything that she would like to say about herself during her report. And that is all.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the mayor?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
Madam Mayor, I don't recall when we were talking about the 2024 budget back in 2023, talking about that skating rink. Do you know what line item that's getting paid for out of?
There is a miscellaneous line item on the budget from last year.
And do you know what the total cost of that is?
I do not have that with me. I actually was not really part of finding that. I can get that from Mr. Huffman.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the city administrator's report. Ms. Dukes-Dean.
Hello. So thank you for the welcome. and I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to serve our city. I am excited about putting the work in, rolling up my sleeves, and committed to helping the city get to the place that is needed. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me or use my phone number. I take all calls and I respond as diligently as possible. And with that being said, I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I'd like to reiterate that the Winter Festival is it starts Friday, December the 12th. I'm sorry, 12, 20, 21st, and 22nd from 4 to 8 p.m. We have our next edition of our newsletter coming out soon. And I wanted to make sure that Ms. Chichester, the email that she sent out, just giving Ms. Anderson, our finance department, an opportunity. You will have by Wednesday your modified 2025 budget and the other supporting documents that are in your agenda, but the cleanup ordinance will come on Friday. And then I just wanted to address some financial concerns that have kind of been put out there that we've been working on. I did start today, but I have updates on these things, and I want to make sure that I deliver those. So it appeared to be a shortage in the OP&F pension report for fire and police. Ms. Anderson was able to successfully pull a report that went through September. Our chief of our fire department pulled a report that went through August. So the difference when we researched it was there. If one person is pulling a report from August and another person is pulling a report from September, there's where our shortage was. And I wanted to give or deliver that just because we so many times we need to clear up where there are inconsistencies. You have two different people pulling different reports, and it appeared that we were short. But actually, when Ms. Anderson reached out to OP&F, we were right on target, and nothing is actually wrong. And then our fire department funds for the fire funds, the balance, it appeared to be wrong based on Paycor. There's a Paycor glitch that is now corrected within the budget. So we understand what Paycor was reporting. They understand it as a glitch. They have fixed that. We're now aligning our software to account for that glitch. So there was kind of some salary line items that were dispersed incorrectly. So I want to make sure that you all know that we are now up to date there. And then our fund balance is also correct. So this is for education's sake. We have a micro way that we look at our budget. That's our fund balance. And then we have our fund lines, which kind of itemizes how those things, so you have your account 211, we'll refer to it as 211. That's our fund balance. That's the macro way to look at larger lump sums of money. And then those are broken down in fund lines. And so when you hear sometimes things being out of balance, those are the fund lines, not the fund balances. The fund balances are there. So then the cleanup ordinance comes through, and I'm helping you to understand if you don't know, and we have a lot of new council members, that the cleanup ordinance comes through and it corrects those fund balances to align. The individual department heads attach costs to those fund lines. It's their responsibility to manage those fund lines and make sure that they stay in the buckets that they need to. From a finance perspective, we make sure that the fund, the fund balances are balanced, and we are in good standing. So I personally went through, make sure that those are taken care of, because we have been kind of given some feedback that they weren't aligning, and they are. And so then I put in your packet today the Ohio Auditors of State Keith Fiber report. This is our kind of bill of health. So we have received a bill of health 2 consecutive years, for sure, 2022 and 2023. And the reason we haven't gotten it for 2024 is because it's not due yet. So I wanted, because this is always a reporting that our finances are wacky and out of balance. But these state auditors have come in, and this is where we are. This is proof positive of what our finances look like. And then there was some kind of conversation around our budget cycle and whether we should be on a 2-year audit or a 1-year audit. And so in order to be audited on a yearly basis, we need to spend $750,000. So it was kind of put out there that our Hinkle was incorrect. We haven't actually received $750,000 within 1 calendar year. So, and we also have not spent that. So that would put us on a 2-year audit cycle, not a 1-year audit cycle, which also means that our Hinkle is correct. And so then we have an audit per our IRS, from the IRS, and that was sparked based on Paycor, so the same issues that we've been having in Paycor. There's a form 941 that was reporting incorrectly, and so that is actually what sparked our audit, and we're working through making sure that we adjust it in Paycor. Those reportings don't come from us. That is something that is as external, and so I just kind of wanted to address some of those issues. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to me. I'm doing my best to catch up and get my hands wet and feet in the mud and get problems worked out as quickly as possible. It's going to take me some time. There is definitely a learning curve, but I'm in the sticks, I'm in the woods, and we'll work it out. And I'm very positive that we will be able to do so. So that's all.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Orr.
So if, do we know that Interim Chief Plackey is in agreement that the OPNF pension is satisfied, that issue is satisfied? And I ask that because he sent a specific email to the chair and vice chair of finance mentioning this. So I want to make sure that all of his questions have been satisfied also.
So I spoke with him today. We're supposed to meet this week, and this same information that I'm giving you all tonight, he and I are supposed to discuss and talk about. It really, he has a spreadsheet. If you have 2 people pulling from 2 different, the spreadsheet that he attached or the report that he attached, it literally says through August. The one that Ms. Anderson pulled was updated as September. He was saying that it was short. It did look short. If you add that 1 more month in there, it actually shows the difference. So we'll talk about that this week.
Mr.
Okay,
President.
so the answer to my question then is he has not signed off on this yet because you
Mr.
haven't talked to
President.
him yet. Is that accurate?
Madam Mayor.
To answer your question, Mrs. Orr, Chief Plackey was copied on the email from the response from them, so he is aware. When we reached out to them, when they responded, he is actually on that email. So he is aware.
And to further answer your question, the things that he wanted to target, this wasn't on the list. So I believe it's resolved for him.
It was on the list of things that he sent to us.
Today?
Not to-
this
no,
is
I
this
spoke
was-
to him
Mr.
today.
President.
So
That-
this is an update
No.
as of today.
Yes.
I understand. I'm asking if he is in agreement with this. as of
Mr.
today.
President,
He
That's
did
what I'm
not
asking.
respond to the email, but
Thank
he
you.
is aware.
Okay.
He
thank
is
you.
aware, and it was not an email from anyone internally. It was externally from the pension.
Right. I do have another question. Regarding this Paycor glitch, how does Paycor get, like, don't we put the information into the Paycor system? Does Paycor generate?
Yes, but in terms of the
All their own?
IRS, the Paycor, we put the information in, but the Paycor is who files our taxes for us. So some of those numbers are generated by their actual filing, not ours. And so there are typical numbers that are put in. For example, the specific form that is showing incorrect, specific municipalities all over usually have like $1 in that space. We had $9,000, which is an error not on our part. We didn't have any numbers incorrect for it to generate. That's something that they generated.
So we don't sign off on that before it's submitted to the IRS?
That part I would have to defer to Ms. Anderson. I haven't been through a filing of the IRS audit, so I don't know that just yet.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you. Typically, what Paycor does is when the quarter ends and there's a 941 form that's filed, I'll get a notification that it was filed. I'll get an email telling me that I can go in and look at it. At that time, I will review it and I will sign off on it. But in 2022, it wasn't done. So this sparked the audit for 2022 because it wasn't manually looked at when the quarterly filings were made. Is that your question?
Well, it leads
Please be
me to
quiet.
more questions, I think. So I find it hard to believe that Paycor is submitting stuff to the IRS
Public meeting.
on our behalf basically without our
Mr.
approving it,
President.
without our
So we are assigned.
acknowledging it?
We are assigned an individual and who I have contacted to see if they were going to be representing us in this audit. It's not something that they do. They referred me to all the forms, all their filings from the previous years, and told me where I can locate them and represent our city myself. So it is a part of the service that we pay for. I've done it. I've filed 941s for other municipalities, but because we contract with Paycor, it's part of their service.
Mr. President?
So Ms. Chichester had spoken up earlier, so I'll go to her, then Mr. Wilson, then Ms. Dukestein.
My comment was about Interim Chief Plackey. I spoke with him. I told him he has to allow due process to work for us to figure out where the problem is. We can't just assume it's one side of the coin. You have to investigate both sides of the coin. He was on the email. He's aware of the issue. He's aware of he was aware of the problem, and he was aware of the answer to the problem. So he has not met with her yet, so we can't say he isn't or is satisfied with it. But he was satisfied with my ask of him to allow due process to take its place. Allow us time to get that investigation. And we can't give you an answer just, immediately. We have to investigate. We have to figure out what the issue is. If there is an issue, fix the issue and move forward. And then if there was an error, I feel like that is a administration thing that needs to be handled in that way but we can't always assume the issue is always within personnel. Because like she said, there was a glitch in the system. And we all have had glitches with emails. We've all had glitches with our cell phones. Technology sometimes fails us.
May I address,
Mr. Wilson?
President? Oh.
So I will say this on behalf of this Paycor situation, because I've used Paycor for my company as a payroll system, and they do make mistakes. They made a huge mistake on my company, and I had to go in and correct it, and they filed the paperwork without having my signature. So that does happen.
Ms. Dukestein?
And I wanted to just remind you that this is from year 2022. Ms. Anderson wasn't here in year 2022. So she's correcting and looking into these things retrospectively to make sure that we're in the right space. Once it's corrected for 2022, 23 and 24 will automatically be aligned. So they did give us that information.
They did, correct. And may
Ms.
I
Anderson.
also- Yes, thank you. May I also address the Paycor issue of the glitch? So when Paycor was set up in 2019, those fund numbers were set up at that time. So what's happening in Paycor is that the general ledger, which is what is assigned to each department, was put in incorrectly. So when we get the general ledger back and they're being input into the system, well, we're going by what Paycor is reporting. So that's how they had the numbers inversed. So instead of coming out of the correct fund, they were reporting it from another fund. So the only thing we have to do is to go back to Paycor, and we've done it already, is to get the year-to-date, the actuals, and then put that number into the finance software. It's a simple fix. Have I addressed your questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Ms. Maria's ready.
Were you finished, Ms. Dukestein?
Yes.
Next is the Law Director's report.
Mr. President, I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Finance Director's report. Ms.
Mr.
Anderson
President.
has no report.
Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb.
So I have a question of the finance director with regards to the minutes from the November 18th meeting. At that time, I had requested to have some further documentation around the legislation, ordinance number 7. Do you know if you have those documents, that data? I had asked for the impact to the budget this new legislation would have,
Okay,
and I just need to know what those numbers are.
I was under the understanding that we were going to discuss that in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting on the 9th.
Oh. I didn't know that.
I believe that was said in the meeting, that we would save that for the Budget and Finance Committee.
Well, it's just that we have a second reading tonight. We need that in order to evaluate the legislation that's in front of us.
Okay.
All right. Next is call of members, starting with Ms. Zorb.
I have nothing else at this time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Gaston.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Dukestein for going live while the Christmas tree was lit up. I was out of town, but I was able to participate in spirit through Facebook Live. Everything looked really nice, and I look forward to taking my kids ice skating. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Chichester.
I would also like to welcome Ms. Dukestein. Thank you for your hard work, and thank you for your dedication to North College Hill.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I like to say, welcome back, Ms. Dukestein. Appreciate you taking that seat. And thank you to everyone that served for the city of North College Hill. Really do appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to say welcome, Ms. Dukestein. I know how you feel about the city, and I believe that we are in good hands with you sitting in that chair, so welcome. And I would also just like to thank everybody who works behind the scenes for this city for all of their hard work, because we don't say this enough, that, you know, there are people who make phone calls to make sure the Trojan Band shows up for the lighting of the Christmas tree, the people who make the phone calls to Perkins to make sure that we can use the tree at Perkins, the people who make sure that the traffic was stopped so that they could put the Dunson Memorial on Hamilton Avenue. All of those individuals who do those things that make our city look really good. I would just like to say thank you to all of those individuals. And even though I've never put on a pair of ice skates and have no intentions of starting, I am very excited that we are going to have an ice skating rink in North College Hill. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Next up is remarks from the audience. Mr. Hedger, we have anyone signed in?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we have Kathy Curtin.
Hello, Kathy Curtin, 6718 Devonwood Drive. Ms. Chichester, would there be a special meeting to review the 2025 budget, or would that be a part of your committee meeting December the 9th? To our new city administrator, welcome. And I think Ms. Zorb gave, and she actually asked my question, but I think it's premature to say that everything is good to go if the director, or i.e. in this instance, the chief, so blatantly shared differentiations last week. I think it's a little premature to say everything is good to go. And so I would hope that before any additional announcements made that regarding, no, sir. Any additional updates are made regarding police, fire, that those chiefs and those directors are on board so that we can have a unified North College Hill. And so anything that's considered to be out of alignment, out of balance, anything that is inaccurate on the accruals, thank you for sharing those insights tonight. But can you actually provide that in writing? Anything that's been modified, updated, changed on the accruals, if you can make sure that that information is made public and available, not necessarily with a public records request, but simply at the meetings, that would be super helpful. You spoke so eloquently and shared that information, but I would like to see it in writing, if it's okay, please. And I realize that you shared again, Arias, you shared regarding the Bill of Health for Keith Faber, but can you clarify, or if anyone on council, law director, is North College Hill currently being investigated by the same office, Keith Faber, State of Ohio, who's indicated, you said tonight, that North College Hill has a great Bill of Health? If someone can honestly answer that question tonight. And then lastly, thank you for clarifying regarding why the IRS was here. But I find it oddly strange that the IRS would just come for one inaccurate report. There has to be something else that triggered the IRS to visit Little Road, North College Hill, November the 26th. Now, if the Hinkle was inaccurately filed, or if it was filed maliciously, or if it was filed prematurely with falsified numbers, that's another story. But I don't think the IRS would come to North College Hill just based on a 2022 report that was filed in error. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out again that it's important that everyone is on the same page. Ms. Dukestein, you mentioned something different from Ms. Anderson, who mentioned something different from Ms. Chichester tonight. Go back and listen to the recording. You all will hear it. I think it's super important, though, that everyone understands the left has to know what the right hand is doing. In order for this to work, wherever you're sitting, no matter if you're in the front,
30
back,
seconds.
it has to be, the left hand has to know what the left hand is doing. And that includes those directors, our police chief, our fire, and even the citizens who pay a hefty tax to live in this city. If you can answer my questions, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Curtin. If anyone would like to address these questions, you can do so at this time.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester.
I will address her question about the budget and finance agenda. I think we said at the last special meeting that we would continue with the 2025 budget in the budget and finance meeting on December the 9th.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
I'd like to address the health indicator report for, that's on the state auditor. There are what they call indicators. We were analyzed as a city for 15 indicators. 14 out of the 15 came back as positive occurrences. And one wasn't even of a concern. So of the 15 indicators, we came back in the green, as you have in front of you. We came back in the green, indicating that the city of North College Hill is a financially healthy place to either live or work in. That's to answer your question about the financial report. I don't recall if there was any other. That is the bill of health.
Yes.
It was just a simple question, you can answer yea or nay. Is the city of North College Hill currently under investigation through Keith Favor's office, state of Ohio? And you're saying no on record?
On record, not none whatsoever.
Are you saying no on behalf of our administrator, our law director, and our mayor, or are you saying to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, we are not under any investigation or anything. From Keith, you can go to this website and you'll see for yourself. We're not under any type of investigation. We passed with flying colors.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
I would like
Mayor.
to, as well, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any investigation.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dukestein?
I would like to say that as well. We're not aware of any investigation. I'd also like to address, I don't know that it was a question, but the OPNF, the flow of email, when you put the proof out there, when you go back to the actual pension organization, the keeper of our pension, and they tell us, hey, this is where we are, I have a hard time refuting that. They are able to look at what we are reporting in terms of salaries, in terms of what the calculation should be, and they tell us what it should be, and they're saying that we're right there. That's like looking at this auditor's evaluation of our city. We have to take efficacy in what people are reporting about us. That's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else signed in, Mr. Hedger?
No, Mr. President.
All right, we'll move to legislation when you're ready, sir.
Second reading ordinance number 7, second reading ordinance number 7, 2024, an ordinance to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City of North College Hill and AFSCME Ohio Council 8 Local 2372. First reading resolution number 17, 2024, a resolution authorizing the City of North College Hill to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvements and or local transportation improvement programs and to execute the contracts as required. First reading resolution number 18, 2024, a resolution authorizing the city to execute a contract for reconstruction of Oak Mill Drive, Corcoran Place, and Baywood Lane in the City of North College Hill.
And that one will go to Public Safety Committee on Monday. All right, thank you, Mr. Hedger. Next is further remarks from the audience as it pertains to any of this legislation.
Kathy Carrington again, 6718 Devonwood Drive. It's been requested and it's been stated and it's been confirmed that any piece of legislation discussed would be made available during that meeting. And I'm looking for a copy and I don't see it. So whoever is responsible for ensuring that residents, citizens, or whomever have an actual copy of what is being voted on tonight, that's important. So whoever's responsible, please, next meeting, have that available. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
Ms. Curitan, what do you need a copy of?
She don't have the resolutions. These ordinances.
Huh?
These ordinances.
That is correct, Mr. Wilson. The ordinance that's being discussed tonight that you all will be doing a first reading, second reading, anything that is being discussed tonight should be made available to the audience, whether they're speaking in the microphone, sitting in the audience, wherever. Anything should be always made available. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
it was my understanding that the legislation would be made available prior to the first reading. Are you asking for copies to be made available at every meeting, at every reading? Do you understand what I'm asking you?
As
No.
your council member just mentioned, that if there's first reading, second reading, so for example, I may be at first reading, Peggy may not be. So anytime that legislation is being discussed, it should be made available
It's also on the
at that
website.
meeting.
It's also on the
And it
website.
was told maybe in July or August that it would be, when we ran into the same scenario then.
Mr. President,
Mr. Edger.
thank you. I am responsible for printing legislation and preparing and putting it on the website. The pending legislation is on the website. I did print it tonight. Unfortunately, I did leave it in the office on the table. But it was printed, and I do have it, and I can provide copies to anyone requested. It also is on the website under the documents under pending legislation. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Edger. All right, we'll move on to old business. Anyone have any old business this evening?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
Madam Mayor, I did move that we create a charter review commission, and I believe that according to the charter, that the mayor is to appoint several resident electors to be a part of that commission. And Mr. Dieters, if you could just kind of, I'm not really sure how we determine which council members are a part of that, or I know that you're supposed to advise us, so if you could just help me out a little bit with that, because I definitely want to make sure we make that happen.
So as far as the council members, there would be a nomination and vote.
Mr. Dieters, could you please speak to the
Oh,
mic?
I'm sorry. As far as what council members would be on that, you would have to vote on them, just like you would vote to appoint people to committees, because it's basically an ad hoc committee for that purpose. And typically what we've done, the last time we did it, because I've done it once with the city, we scheduled an initial meeting, just kind of like as a steering committee meeting, elected a chairman or chairperson of that committee, and then sort of divided out the charter by chapter. And then maybe you would say, okay, we're going to review chapters 1 and 2, and we're going to meet in 2 weeks. And then the parties would meet. Those are public meetings, they're open to the public. There's no public participation or anything, but they're open to the public. And then there would just be a discussion. And then if there were particular changes that would be suggested, then that committee would actually vote to determine whether that would happen or not happen. I'm available to advise that committee, so in any way that advice is needed. And then I think last time we did it too, I actually developed and did the document. So when the committee's work is done, you make a recommendation to council, and we would actually provide a draft of a proposed revision or amendment to the charter, and we would just show edit marks on there so council could see and the public could see. But that's essentially the process.
And is that something that has to go on the ballot, or does council vote on that? How does that work?
So first, there would be a recommendation from the committee to council. Council can either accept that recommendation in full, or they can also choose to accept portions of it, or they could even revise what that recommendation would be. And then council, once they do that, then would actually vote to see whether they put it on the ballot. So council you could go through that whole process and still not get an affirmative vote to put it on the ballot. Then if council does place it on the ballot, then it has to pass on the ballot to actually become an effective. And I think sometimes what has to happen is there's like a cost-benefit analysis, because if there is cost of putting it on the ballot. So in other places where I've worked, there's been, maybe there have been some changes that people have looked at and said, well, perhaps that'd be a good change. But in a cost-benefit analysis, that change isn't worth the actual money it's going to cost to place it on the ballot. So those are things you have to take into consideration when you look at changes.
Okay, and you said, is there a certain number of council members that?
I have to look, but I think it might require a supermajority, but I'd have to look.
I mean, a certain number of council members to be a part of the Charter Review Commission. Is there a limit, or is?
It actually is in the charter. I can look it up right now. I just haven't looked at it. But I can get an answer to it while your meeting's going on and let you know.
We're almost at the end.
No, I mean,
Mr.
I'm going to have to
President.
look right while you're looking it up. I think there's 2, but
I'm reading it now. It does not say. It says a charter review commission shall be created not less than once each 5 years, on or before December 1 of the year prior to the year of the charter review, for the purpose of reviewing the charter to determine, I'll skip all that. The commission shall consist of 7 members. The mayor shall serve as a member of the commission by virtue of his or her office, and the council shall elect one of its own to the commission. Then 2 appointees, and council shall elect 3 resident electors. So council is responsible for 3, mayor 2, and 1 council member.
Okay. Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I would like to implore all of my fellow council members that this is something that I'm really interested in doing. Obviously, I'm not, I'm obviously clearly advocating for myself. I was a part of the last Charter Review Commission, I think, as a regular old person. That was before I joined council. I think Matt Miller Novak was the author of that confusion. No offense. But I am very interested in this. Just if anybody wants, I just want to throw that out there. So there we go. And according to Mr. Dieter, somebody has to nominate me.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester.
I would like to make the motion to nominate Ms. Underwood to that committee.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson.
I'd like to second that.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Chichester and a second by Mr. Wilson to nominate Ms. Underwood to the Charter Review Commission. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Gaston,
Yes.
Ms. Chichester,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood.
Yes,
Motion passed 5-0.
Mr. President.
Hold on.
Okay.
You had mentioned Mr. Dieter's needing a supermajority potentially for this?
No, it does not say that.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Ms. Underwood.
So apparently, council, we have to nominate 3 people. So if you all know of anyone who might be interested in that, I would just ask you to kind of think about that. And it does, I would actually appreciate if it's someone that you may not agree with everything that's going on, because that just makes things, I think sometimes that can make things better. So if we can just have some suggestions, I think that would be helpful.
And I would like to see that by next meeting.
Me too. Thank you.
Me 3.
Is that all for you, Ms. Underwood?
That is. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other old business? All right, hearing none, we'll move to new business. So I received an email from Ms. Clear. I did forward it to council. ICRC is willing to do some work on the TV monitor over here free of charge, but they need $20.85 worth of parts to do it, and she wants approval from council to take it out of the council budget.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I move that we allow Ms. Clear to take, what is it?
$20.85.
$20.85 out of the council budget.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gaston.
I second.
And again, this is for work on that TV monitor. All right, motion by Ms. Underwood, second by Ms. Gaston to approve the 2085 coming from the council budget. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I'd like to add that she also mentioned that they're going to see if she can get the electric moved too, because the power cord doesn't reach without using an extension cord. So there might, my point in saying that
Be
is
as
there might
additional-
be some
cost,
additional
yes.
monies. So maybe we just change the dollar amount to something like $100 and
Approve the
cover it.
project?
Yes.
Mr. President, I would like to amend my motion
That was it was a good point that she brought up. I forgot about the additional potential costs, so.
to approve the project that Ms. Clear is describing up out of council's budget up to $250. I think beyond that, we would want to know what's going on.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gaston?
I second.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Gaston,
Yes.
Ms. Chichester,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood.
Yes.
Motion passed, 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business tonight?
Mr. President,
Ms. Orr?
so I know Ms. Chichester has mentioned that we're going to have a finance meeting, but I'm wondering if, actually, I'm recommending that we have another committee of the whole so that all of council can discuss the budget. And I say that because there are 2 members of council that are not on the finance committee that would not have a voice during that meeting.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester?
I spoke with council about making it back to Budget and Finance Committee meeting, and council agreed.
So those 2 members
Said
agreed
they
to
would
not
attend.
have a voice.
They agreed they would attend a Budget and Finance Committee meeting to talk and discuss the budget. They agreed to put it back into the committee.
But they don't have a voice at that meeting.
They agreed to make it go back into Budget and Finance Committee to host the meeting. Without that, the work, the way we operated the meeting the last time, we only can speak, I think it's 2 times on a issue, but with it being Budget and Finance, I think it would be best for me to be the person to speak on issues when I'm the one who has the committee with the Budget and Finance, the 2025 budget. I've met with Ms. Janetta and discussed different things, different issues, different line items to make sure they're being resolved, make sure they're being handled. It just makes more sense to have it back into Budget and Finance instead of doing the committee of a whole, where when we talked about it, all the council agreed to attend the meeting for the committee meeting on Monday.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
Mr. Dieters, look, I'm earning your money today, huh? So at a committee meeting, can the committee chair invite members of council who are not on the committee and allow those members to participate in the committee meeting?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything currently in our charter which would prevent that, or anything in your council rules, unless your council rules have something to say that, which I'm not as familiar with. But there would, now, if those individuals wouldn't have the right to vote if there was a vote of the committee, but they could participate.
Well, committees can't vote anyway, though, right?
Well, if the committee has to vote, they may have to vote on something. If you're making a recommendation to put something up, they potentially could vote, committees could vote.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Ms. Orr?
So we have this new little book that Ms. Janetta Anderson bought for us called Robert's Rules of Order. And in section, it's on page 162, it says, only committee members have the right to be present during its actual deliberations of a committee, when the committee will be making I can't say that word, sorry.
Substantive.
Thank you. Recommendations or decisions on an important matter, however, it should schedule a hearing at which any member of the organization can appear before it to present views on the subject. So it's saying that the other members cannot speak at this meeting. They can
Okay.
be present, they can listen, but they cannot speak.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
with regard to that particular section, I think that the committee chair can invite other members to a special committee meeting.
But this isn't a special committee meeting. This is the regular meeting.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester.
per the email sent today, I asked all council members to be present at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. We had a verbal conversation with each council member. Each council member agreed to put it back into Budget and Finance. Each of council member agreed to attend the meeting on the 9th, I believe it is, and we agreed that no committee of whole was needed. Per each council member conversation, you yourself included.
I did not agree to going back into the finance. I wouldn't.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I don't-
Dieters.
do your actual council rules require you to use Robert's Rules of Order?
Yes.
Because I guarantee you're probably not using
Yeah.
it verbatim, and almost nobody does. I mean, so I typically those are used as a guideline, but even based on what Councilperson Zorb said, that is your right to be there. Now, if a chairman opens that up and allows more people to participate, that's the chairman's call, as that person that controls that meeting.
Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb.
So at that point, isn't that person a citizen? And so that opens it up for all citizens. So I just want to put that out there.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester.
I would like to point out that we're only reviewing the budget, and then the budget comes back into council for approval. We will not be voting on anything.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson.
to be honest, the conversation is that we were going to put it back in budget, finance at that meeting. And we didn't, all of us agreed that we didn't need a committee of the whole. I just want to vouch for that conversation. So how we adjust it or go forward, I'm with it, but we did agree we didn't need a committee of the whole.
Any other discussion on this matter?
Mr. President, just
Ms. Underwood.
I think that if we're honest with ourselves, we will admit that we are not going to resolve anything when we meet at the next Budget and Finance meeting. I think it's only an hour, and, and we may extend that an additional hour. I'm not giving you, I can't give you more than that, Ms. Chichester, I'm sorry. But I historically, we don't seem to, I don't think that we're going to get through everything, all the discussions at the next meeting. So I think there will be additional meetings. So I just.
Mr. President,
Ms. Chichester.
I was waiting for Mr. Wilson to send out his updated agenda for his meeting. If you check the email, he has, sorry, let me get my verbiage correct.
Yielded.
That's the word I was looking for. Some of his committee time. So I sent that email out earlier today to everyone. So he yielded some time to us, so we will be longer than an hour. We will be going till 9 o'clock.
Mr. President,
Madam Mayor.
I just had a question. If, I don't know if this is even possible, but I hear Ms. Chichester say Mr. Wilson has yielded his time. Would it benefit for what is trying to be done, from what I'm hearing, one meeting that's a regular meeting, not a committee of the whole, if they combine their meetings? I'm not off the top recalling everybody who's in Mr. Wilson's, but if they do a joint meeting to discuss the budget,
Right.
I don't know if that's something that can be done, even if that includes all of the council members. I don't know if that's something that, instead of him yielding his time, they combine budget and finance, recreation, to discuss the budget. That way, I'm sure those two council members are on both of those committees. That's just a suggestion.
Mr. President.
Not sure if it's possible. Mr. Dieters.
Again, as long as the chairs are agreeable, that shouldn't be a problem.
Mr. Wilson?
President. Sorry.
Mr. President, I don't have a problem. We can combine our meetings. We need to get this budget reviewed.
Okay. Did I hear someone else?
Mr. President,
Ms. Duxine?
if you all look at page 15, 10-4, committee meetings, the rules, it does yield the final call on the chairs. So if you guys want to do that, I do believe that captures everybody between the two meetings or committee meetings. So it's really per the council rules up to the chairs of those two committees.
And Mr. President, the reason for that suggestion is that it would alleviate that 2 comments per person that is under the committee of the whole rules.
Mr. President, I just want to reiterate, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Ms. Duxine?
It's on page 15, section 10-4, committee meetings, and just in case you want to look it up. It's a very long portion. I would read it all.
You could just do a special committee.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gaston?
Madam Chairs, I just would like to express my interest in joining the Budget and Finance Committee. And if anyone would like to,
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I move that we add Ms. Gaston to the Budget and Finance Committee as a member.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson?
I second that.
All right, motion on the floor to nominate Ms. Gaston to the Budget and Finance Committee by Ms. Underwood, second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. Gaston?
yes.
Ms. Chichester?
Absolutely.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes,
Motion passed 5-0.
Mr. President.
Ms. Underwood, sorry.
Mr. Hedger, I'm not listed as a member of Budget and Finance, but I'm actually a member of Budget and Finance. So if you could update the role there, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
You
very
are on
much.
the updated list.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much, sir.
That's the one you sent that out, just a few days ago? Mr. Hedger?
Yes, Mr. Yeah, she is on the list.
Yes. All right, any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I would like to move to add Mr. Wilson to the North College Hill Business Association as the council representative.
Mr. President,
Is that the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I
Okay.
thought it was the
Because there's no business association.
That's Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber,
That's
of-
correct.
okay, Chamber of Commerce, okay, I apologize.
Is it Ms. Gaston or?
yep, it was me.
Okay, sorry.
I
Go ahead.
just wanted to second that.
That's fine, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Motion by Ms. Underwood, second by Ms. Gaston to nominate Mr. Wilson as the North College Hill Council. That's the word I'm looking for here.
Representative
Representative,
liaison.
yeah, to NCH Chamber of Commerce. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I just want to make sure that Mr. Wilson is aware that those meetings are during the day, so I want to make sure that you have available time during the day for those.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson?
I just wanted to reiterate to Ms. Zorb, you must have forgot the last meeting. I own my own business, so it's my own time.
Okay.
All right, we have the motion on the floor to add Mr. Wilson as the representative to the Chamber of Commerce by Ms. Underwood, second by Ms. Gaston. Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Ms. Sorben?
Yes.
Ms. Gaston?
Yes.
Ms. Chichester?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I move that we adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wilson?
I second that.
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting by Ms. Underwood, second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Ms. Sorben?
Yes.
Ms. Gaston?
Yes.
Ms. Chichester?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. We are adjourned.